Medium.
What happened? Okay, boys, we are live.
Okay.
So, hello and welcome to episode number 22 of the Fullstack Network. And today's episode is a bit of an, I would say, off band. What happened was last Friday, I don't remember what date it was, but it was June 2017. I think that's the most relevant information.
Okay.
We had a Q&A session for 2.5 hours. And during that Q&A session, what we did is we got a lot of questions from the viewers. And one of the viewers was Matt. Hello, Matt.
Hello.
So we kind of continued the discussion offline. And Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were worried about you not really getting a good direction into Node.js. You had concerns about like organization and where should things go and so on and so forth. So why don't
Right.
you wanted to tell us a bit about yourself and what are you looking to get out of the stream today?
All right. I'm this is my second year in college now in Southern California. I've been doing web dev, or first started out taking C++ classes in my first year of college. I decided I didn't really like it. I decided I kind of wanted to get into web development, and about 6 months ago, I started learning Node because that was like that's what everyone said to learn, so that's what I decided on. And 6 months before that, I started learning JavaScript, so I had a good handle on JavaScript. Um, and mainly the big thing that I really want to get out of this is organization. Like you already took a look at my files and you saw how unorganized I am, and I guess I'm just not understanding the workflow.
Yeah.
Like I know what I need to do, but it's just how to organize it and how my workflow should be is like one of my main issues in my opinion.
Okay. Sounds good. And the crowd favorite Stevens is with us again today. Hello, Stevens.
What's up, Avi?
This does not sound like the cloud favorite.
Well, I was never the crowd favorite.
All right, so welcome back. Stevens has been on vacation in Maui for the last 6 months.
Sure.
Um,
Always
okay,
awesome. Go check it out, everybody.
don't do commercials to infomercials for Maui. Okay, awesome. So I think we should Stevens who someone on Twitch is saying Stevens who.
Stevens
Um,
XU.
yeah, Stevens
Last, la- last name XU.
last name XU. So yeah, Stevens has been streaming with me for basically since the beginning, and today he is back. Okay, so I think the first thing to really establish for you, Matt, is you now have a project, right? So let's take one of the projects that you had that you worked on. So it's basically a leaderboard website, right?
Right.
So basically, you have users, and then you have. Can you talk us? Can you walk us through a bit into what the product look like?
So basically, it's for speed runs, and a lot of people don't know what that is. It's basically where you race people in video games to see who can get the fastest score. So basically, it's a leaderboard showing like first place, second place, third place, like the whole leaderboard of the times of the people. And well, my goal was to have um like user profiles that you can like look at their times for every game that they have, and that's basically all I have right now. But um, yeah,
Okay,
that's
great.
all I really have right now.
No,
It's
that's
just
that's all
a
right.
leaderboard.
I mean, I think
Right.
it's really a minimal project to work with, and and Stevens know because Stevens worked with me for what 2 years.
Yep.
So Stevens know, and basically everybody that's watching the stream knows. I don't like explosive definitions of products. They're they're basically toxic. When someone tells me, "Hey, I want to build like a social network, and it will have this and that and this and that," and you basically lay out 50 features,
Right.
and then you're never gonna ship this product. So I think the most minimal product you can have that you can live with is the product that you want to build. And I think right now having a leaderboard where you have a game, and you have a user and you have a score, I think those models flying around the space is great to start with.
Right.
Okay, so I basically open a directory here called speedruns. It's an empty directory. So if you would start this project alone, without me, and Stevens and Stream and people watching you under a lot of pressure, how would you go and how would you start this? Imagine now that you did not start already.
Right.
You have a completely clean slate. What would you do?
All right. So the first thing I would probably do is after creating the directory, I would probably install Node.
Okay, Node is installed,
using
obviously.
npm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would npm install Express, and then also save it so it stays as a dependency.
Okay. So we'll do that. Okay. Walk me through. Don't worry about the Express right now. I'm gonna do it in a second.
Okay. And then I would probably just go to the Express documentation because I don't really remember offhand how to like listen to the port and all that stuff.
Okay, great. So the thing that I wanted to get out of it, more than really the step by step, is your approach to how would you approach this. And it sounds like
Right.
you have more of the approach of, I'm gonna start with the bare bones. I'm gonna start with Express, and then I'm gonna look into how to add a listen and how to add an endpoint and so on and so forth, right?
Right.
Okay, so that approach is great, but I think that approach is really dangerous if you don't know how to organize your code.
Right. So you're talking about laying out like my first thing of what I want to do.
Yeah.
Like in
No,
the
no, no, no.
project itself.
I mean, what you said is fine. It just sounds to me that to some level of knowledge, this approach is dangerous. And it's dangerous because you have no guidelines to where to put things. So,
Right.
Like it or hate it, but Rails, I don't think I even have Rails. Rails installed here.
Come on. For old time's sake, you don't even have Rails installed.
No, I don't have Rails installed.
Shame on you, obviously.
I don't. But even we can take Django. Let's see, Django project like start. So let's see how we do it. Python, Django.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
I forgot to say, what is it called to get all the files set up? Isn't it like npm init?
Yeah, npm init. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Okay, so npm init is fine. Acidic Mushrooms on Twitch, he's saying Node has Yeoman, and Yeoman is actually completely separate from Node. You have Yeoman project to start Ruby projects. Yeoman is basically a templating engine like Cookie Cutter for Python. And we also have a question on LiveEDU from Hussam asking, what is the best to learn one field or to learn more than one? Definitely more than one, in my opinion. But I might be, I might be biased into a jack of all trades. Okay, so we're basically going to start with npm init here, and we're going to call it speedruns. Everything else is basically default. And then we're going to npm install -- save dev, or basically going to start yarn add -- dev express. All right. So now,
That's a question I had too. What's the difference between doing it through Yarn and doing it through NPM?
so Yarn is sugar on top of npm. Um, what it does, it gives you a lock file, which is, like any other dependency management, gives you a lock where you basically check in this lock file, and then everywhere you check out the code and do npm install or basically yarn, it's gonna install the same versions.
Oh, okay. So it's
And
just like a dependency, basically.
yeah, and one more thing is that it gives you this registry.yarnpackage.com here, which is a proxy to npm. So
Okay.
it does a few things, right? So one is it gives you locking of versions. Of versions. It gives you a proxy to Yarn, to npm, which is faster. It gives you local cache, right? So all of that. But right now it's basically obsolete because npm installed everything in their latest versions. So in latest versions of npm, they have a log file, and they have everything you need. Okay, great. So we have a yarn log here, and we have a package.json. So what you would do now is you would start with like app.js and have like the basic express.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm not sure exactly how to do it. I need to do like var express equals something.
Yeah. So import.
Or I guess you can use the ES6 version, I guess. I don't know. I don't know ES6 though.
Yeah, don't worry. So import express from express, and this is actually no parentheses here.
Hey, I have a question here.
What's up?
So are we starting this project fresh, or is this something Matt already had working on, and then we're doing some reorganization around
No,
this project?
so we're gonna start with like from scratch, and we're just gonna see how you add a model and how you add things, and then we're gonna take the project that Matt has and refactor it.
Okay, I see.
Okay, so app.get. So here we have this, and this is request and response, and here, so this is here, and then we can do app.listen port 3000, and this is just an empty function, so this is going to be this, and then console.log listening on port 3000. Okay,
Sounds good.
so let's see, node app.js, and this is probably gonna fail, and this is because we are missing some boilerplate, which is really, really fun with JavaScript. Acidic Mushrooms on Twitch is asking, is ES6 import supported in Node? The answer is yes. But what I'm running here is Node 6.11, and in 6.11 the answer is no. So that's that. Right. So let's see. Cancel dev. So I'm gonna look for the creative network. Let's see where we are here. Okay, so we have, this is the thing that we're missing. So we're gonna add Webpack. All right. So Montreal Chris Lee. Thank you for the follow. Okay, so we're gonna add Webpack, and then in our oh man, um, I will answer that question in a minute. Someone is asking why I don't use WebStorm. Um, Stevens, I think you were tired of listening to this question.
No, actually, I've never heard of that question.
To me answering it.
Web
I
store?
mean,
No.
well, any IDE.
Ah, the question of ID. Yeah. So, but maybe you can have a golden version of the answer.
I should. I should.
Yeah, I don't even know what WebStorm is. IDE? Let's see. WebStorm.
I'll answer that question in a second.
Okay, JavaScript IDE. Okay.
Right. So start webdev config webpack config. So webpack config. This is app. And then we're going to move app.js. So let's make dir -p src and then move app.js into src. And while we're running yarn here, let's answer that question on Twitch. Okay, so Montreal Chris Lee is asking, why don't you use WebStorms? I once used Vim on CentOS. I just switched to WebStorm and it's more comfortable. To each their own. I use Atom plus Vim binding. So here's the deal. For me, all of those IDEs are just not worth it. So my workflow is completely and utterly surrounded by the terminal. So I have a split for, as you can see, so I'll run like Vim here on the left side, and then here on the right side I'll have command, and then I can have another command here, and I can copy paste things between the command line and Vim. I can split the screen multiple times. And if you think about the size of the screen and the size of the resolution that I have, I can get much more done in anything. And everything is done with the keyboard. You will never, while I'm writing code, you will never see me reach here, ever. Everything is done in the keyboard and everything has a shortcut. So if I'll need to split the screen, I'll just do that. If I'll need to split the screen again, which I don't usually do, I'll do that. But what I'll usually have is vertical splits. And I can also run commands from here. So I'll do like echo and then, I don't know, a yarn test or something like that. So everything in my workflow is around the terminal. All right, so yarn start. And let's see what we have here. Webpack is compiling. And we have src app.js. What is the issue? Can't resolve fs.
All system? I don't know.
Yeah, no, we'll see. So let's see what we have here. Okay, so express lib request can't resolve net in lib. This is weird. This is like node is missing. So let's see. Okay, so this is here. Oh, I know what I'm missing. Okay. Or actually, I'm not missing it. Package.json is correct. Okay, package.json is correct. Main is app.js. Let's look at Webpack. Webpack, so Webpack is src app.js. Okay, so we have this. Webpack. So here we have Webpack. Oh, I think I need to install this globally. And let's hope we are able to start the project now. Okay. So what am I missing? srcapp.js. Can't resolve fs. This is weird. Okay, so let's go here and let's go to Webpack. Do we have Node? No. So Node and fs empty. Okay. Still, now it's net. Oh, this is weird. Okay, let's see what we have here. Okay, seems like this is a bug with Webpack. But let's see if we can.
This used to work, I remember.
Yeah, it's you know, it's every time you run a JavaScript project, it's new stuff. That's what life is like in the Node.js land. It's literally like this every single time.
Still not like stable enough. Huh? Just like
Okay, so app.js. No, it's just not.
yeah.
It just isn't. It's crazy, because it should be like super simple stuff. But what I think is if this doesn't work, then I'll just not worry about any of this. Okay, so no. All right, so let's go into vim app.js. I'm gonna remove all of this and just gonna start with Node. So no import. We're gonna just do Node. Okay. So node app.js. Right. Vim app.js. What's going on? Okay. So I'm just gonna start with the simple ES5 syntax, like so, and node app.js. Okay, so the app is running on, so I'm going to remove rf, src, and rm-rf. Let's see what we have here. Webpack, and let's do git init at this point. Okay, so great. So now we have like the naked Express app. So where would you start now? How would you start with planning on what to add and when to add it and so on and so forth?
All right, so can I take a look at like my file structure, like what I have, like ls in my main directory?
You mean here in this project?
Yeah.
Just this file. Nothing else.
That's all I have.
Yeah.
It's just app.
And that's sorry, and just a sec. So this is you have app.js, package.json, and yarn lock. So nothing.
Okay. Hmm.
But the question is, detached from the file system. Um, I mean, what would be the next thought in your mind on what's the next thing you should add?
Hmm. What I would probably do is just like make a simple homepage. Like personally, that's what I would probably do because
Oh,
I wouldn't know what else to do.
okay. So just a simple homepage that gives you something.
Sure.
Okay.
Like the nav bar or something like that, you know?
Oh, so basically a web page with HTML in it.
Yeah. Or using a templating engine.
Okay.
Usually what I'd use is handlebars, but um,
So you
I
would
would
go.
also probably make a few files, like a views file, a public file. Um, what else? Well,
So
because I know for sure I'm gonna need views, so I would do that.
okay. So you would um go with like what we call like a monolithic web app. Basically, the views and the presentation layer and the logic layer is in the same app, right?
Right. So I
So
would just build like the skeleton kind of deal.
okay, so you wouldn't have um you know what I mean, like you build the API with Express and then build the rest of the app, basically the client side with a separate app, like a client side app.
I have no idea what you just said, but we're gonna go with that.
Okay, no, what I'm saying is this: you have two options to building an app.
Right.
You have the option of let's see, so readme MD here. So you have the question, the option that controller, you know, gets the request from the user, right? And then goes to the model and says, okay, give me the data. So give me the data. And then returns to the controller. And here the controller has two options. One is to send back a JSON response. And the other is to send back a view, which is basically HTML, CSS, JS, and so on and so forth, right?
Right.
If you choose number one, then what you need on the other side is a client-side app, which uses Angular or React or whatever. But all this does is talks to an API, which is this one. Okay? So this
Right.
would be repo 1, and this would be repo 2. Right?
Got it.
The advantage of this approach is that you can move in parallel, and you can also separate the concerns. So you can, once your API is ready, first of all, other people can use it. Because if you couple the logic with the presentation layer, then you exposing your logic to the external world is another step in the process. But if you already expose an API, then you can use the API, and then someone else can also use the API. You know what I mean? It's not really coupled with the presentation layer.
Right.
One more thing is that you can develop your app in terms of, okay, this is my API, and once you think of an API, then you can move faster, and then you can think, okay, so I need to create a user, so let me create the API for that, and then I need to create a game, so let me create the API for that, and then list of games, and then let me create the API for that. And for me,
What do you mean by creating an API?
creating an API is basically just creating an endpoint. So for example, right now, if we run the app here, I think we have someone on Twitch saying hello. Bear001 is saying hello back. Steven, say hello to Matt. Uh,
Hello.
okay, so This means an API. So let me think of an API that we can query.
I always think of an API as being just like live data. I don't know whether that's like accurate, but that's what I've heard.
No, so that's not really accurate because you can query an API and return mock data.
Right.
So let me see. GitHub public API. I want to get the public API from GitHub. Let me see that for a second.
Like I've never worked with any like
No,
APIs or anything like that before.
that's what we're here for. Let's see
Okay.
what we have here. So, man, okay. What did I want to do? What did I want to do? Okay, let me show you something for a second. I'm looking for an API I can query. Let me see.
Can query trip.com API.
No, but I need the signature.
That's right. There's no public API.
Yeah. So Shandu19 on live edu is saying you not edit the script to switch the screen, and I did. So now, as you can see, I am on live edu screen, and when I move back to the terminal to just write something, it switches back. I didn't do it with the mouse or anything like that. So it's I've done it. It's cool. Thank you for that tip, by the way. All right. So where is this? I want to get examples here. So I'm looking for an API to query. My God, this should not be this hard.
Try Google Place. Do you have a free API key? That's the easiest one, I think. Especially for demonstration purpose.
New York Times API.
Is it free?
Well, I just Googled list of open APIs and it was there.
Let's see. Public APIs. Oh, there it is. Animals. Where is it? No, but you need a developer key. I'm looking for something with nothing. Oh, there it is. Okay. So there it is. So curl. So now I'm going to do this. And then I get back a JSON response. Okay, so as you can see, what I get back is just a list of things. And what I can do is I can say, okay, so what are the events tomorrow? So I'm going to curl this. And this is like the event tomorrow, right?
Right.
So the same way I query the API now from my local using curl, then a client-side application can query this and display something. But it's more of I wouldn't call it like a philosophical issue, but it's more of a debate whether an app, like a web app, should be a presentation layer and a logic layer, or it should be just a logic layer, expose APIs. And this is an API basically, right? So this is APIs, you can see some like endpoint, /default/tomorrow, and it will give you the event for tomorrow. And then when you have this API, so curl the other one, that means, okay, give me the calendars.
Right.
And then it gives you like a list of calendars, which in our case, this would be, okay, so /API/games, and then it will show you what are the games, right? Which obviously is like returning 404 not found.
Voice just got disconnected from me.
So that what it means by an API. It's basically exposing your application data using endpoints in a readable way, which in most cases these days means JSON.
Right.
Um, so it's really more of a question: what would you feel comfortable with? And I think, in terms of talking about what is the best practice, quote unquote. I definitely think that these days you would really need to convince me for building a web app with a presentation layer baked into it. Um,
Yeah, Avi, that's I was gonna ask you, like, in the world today, what would be the advantage of building like a monolithic app with a presentation baked in, like the old Rails way? Like, I just can't see any advantage of doing so anymore. Like the API would be like so much more. I mean, it's so straightforward. Like I would go with that option almost every time. Like, why would I go the other way?
um, so comfort and legacy.
Yeah, but those are not like real reasons. Those are not good reasons, right?
Um, well, but those are the reasons that people still build apps like that. You know what I mean? Instead of
Yeah.
learning React and instead of learning some client-side framework, they can use Mustache, or they can use Handlebars, or they can use Jinja. In the Python world. Um,
Hmm.
Instead of learning yet another framework, you can focus on building your app. But again, the
Yeah.
problem with that is that essentially by definition you're building a closed box.
Yeah.
And by building a closed box, you're getting into a very dangerous game that I think we know too well. Um,
Yes.
you're
Absolutely.
you're getting into a world that now all of your application, all of its magic, all of its beauty, is stuck behind layers of like JavaScript and layers of CSS and layers of HTML that are really not necessary for the application logic. And then when some other developer wants to consume your app, right? So imagine now, Matt, talking about your app. I know it's definitely detached from reality to talk about it now, but think that tomorrow someone is saying, "Hey, this is a cool idea. I want to build an iPhone app for that. Give me your APIs." Then you're like, "What?" You know what I mean?
Right.
And if you build the app the correct way, then you can basically say, "Okay, here's your APIs. Here's your developer key, and good luck."
Right.
Um,
So so basically, I'm just exposing my information. Like, let's say I had in my backend or whatever, I had
mhm.
like a list of all my users, and I wanted to expose that for whatever reason, or let's just say for the sake of argument, like a list of all the times that everyone has ever posted, right,
Yeah,
for every game.
yeah,
So that would be information that I would put into an API so they can grab, and I would be the endpoint.
yeah,
Okay. So APIs are just basically just grabbing information, whatever's in there, you take and use that.
yeah.
Cool.
But you don't have to give it to anybody.
Right.
You can just start with like yourself, right? And just build the API for yourself and close it for everybody else.
So do you build the API, then you use your own API?
Yeah, you build the
Is that how
API and then
it's
you use
normally
your
done?
own API. Yeah. That's how Instagram is works. That's how like Airbnb works. That's how everything works. And I
Right.
want to show you. I want to show you an example here. So I'm going to open up the browser. Stevens, you know this. What I'm going to show.
Oh, cute kittens?
No.
No, no, not cute kid.
No.
Which one?
Um, just look at the browser. You need to go look at like Live EDU or Twitch to see the browser.
They're still lagging. I still see your terminal on live
Okay.
video.
It's gonna come up in a second.
Oh, hotel near Eiffel Tower. Yeah, I remember this one.
Yeah. So here's the deal, right? This is an app, but what you see here is just a fancy wrapper around APIs. So if you
Right.
look at the network tab here, and I'm gonna refresh, and I'm gonna do just this XHR. So you have this, right? And then you have results, and then you have a result, and the result has an address and a media. And then when I do this, what this basically does is just displays what I have here in media. So if I look at if the API that rendered this part, then there is a result, and then there is medias, which is all the pictures, and then there is a place, and you can see that it's a restaurant, and it has, where's the title so I can show you? Yeah, there it is. So you see this, Saint Christopher Canal Paris. So there it is here, and you have a phone number, you have a star rating, which is here. You
Right.
see, so star rating.
So we're just taking all that API information, just making it pretty.
Exactly.
That's
But
all we're doing.
the thing is that you built your logic behind the scenes, and you expose it to an API, and now you can say, okay, so my presentation layer looks like this. Oh, sorry, I actually should have shown it like this. My presentation layer looks like this, and then another presentation layer is an iPhone app, and then another presentation layer,
Right.
might be
But it's all using the same API.
exactly. So it's all using the same API. One more thing that is really, really good about building an app this way is that it really forces you to think about how the data interacts, and really forces you to think about a resource in a way that is, okay, so now I need to query all of the users, so I need an endpoint for the users. I need a model for the users, which will make a list of users, which will in turn return a JSON list of users.
Got it.
Right?
So when you're creating all this yourself, you're pulling that from your database, basically.
Yeah.
So your database is basically like the very beginning of your API.
Yeah.
If you're creating it yourself, your own APIs.
Yeah. So your database, so it looks like this, right? So it looks like a database, which is your storage engine.
Right.
This everything sits in, tables and rows, or documents, if it's a NoSQL web hype, right?
Right.
From
Like
there, yeah, exactly. From there, there's a controller, and the controller basically reads, well, not really, but the controller is the interaction. Yeah, is the interaction tier. Sorry, let me close this. So the controller is interaction tier. And then basically on the way here, you have a model, which basically correlates 1-to-1 with a table. So you have a user model for a
what's the
user's
model?
table. Yeah, I'm going to get to that in a second. So
Okay.
a model is basically the unit of work to represent data. Q-Shield, thank you for the follow. So a model is the unit of work to represent data in the database. So in the database, I might have a table called users. It will have an ID and a first name and a last name.
Okay.
But on the Node app, I will have a user object, and look at this. This is like all lowercase, and this is one uppercase. It's like that by definition. And it will have an ID, it will have a first name, and it will have a last name, right? And when I want the data from the database, I don't actually do select star from users. What I do is user.find, and then some like ID of 1, and then then, obviously, because this is JavaScript, something. And then this goes to the controller, and this returns a JSON object to the API, right? So the API will basically look like this. So it will be /API users or API v1 users. And then if you want a single user, it will be API user 1. And then if
Right.
you want to search for users, then it will be users, and then q equals mat. And then if you want to create users, so this is get, this is get, this is get. If you want to create a user, then you do post to users. If you want to update a user, you do put to user one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to delete a user, then you do delete of API v1 user one. So these are all HTTP verbs.
Right.
So you have get, post, put, delete. And you also have options, which is completely irrelevant for this case. And then your API in conjunction with the HTTP verb will dictate how the data is either manipulated or presented. Which, in your case, if you say, okay, so I'm going to build an app, these are all like forms. You know what I mean? So this is like index.html, right? And this is, I don't know, user.html. And then this is search.html. And then this is update, I don't know, like update user.html or so on and so forth, right?
Mm-hmm.
By cutting that out, you think about, okay, what is my model? And again, the model is the object, like the JavaScript plain object representation of whatever you have in the database. Okay?
Right.
And then you have the controller, and then you have the JSON object. And from there, you basically manipulate your data. So you can update a user, you can delete a user, and so on and so forth.
Right. So we don't actually do, because you saw in my project, I was doing like all kinds of SQL queries.
Yeah.
Is that like the wrong way to do it?
This is the absolute wrong way. Yeah, you never have, you never do it, ever. Unless you really need to. First of all, you don't, sorry. Once you do that, you lost the ability to manipulate objects. You lost the ability to work with like a named object that has a defined set of variables, for example. You lost your validations. You lost like a lot of things that you get from your models. So doing this in terms of like model is called an ORM. An ORM is basically object relation model, which is, again, O is the database, relation is you get it, and the model is the model. And this goes through the controller and the database and so on and so forth. And again, doing this will force you to work with better object. So it's not object relational. So ORM is object relational mapping, and then the model is the model. So what I want to do is I want to do like a quick sample of that. Okay.
Okay. Of like the workflow you're talking about? Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so there it is. So we're going to use Mongo because why not? So let's start Mongo. So
I need to learn Mongo.
Sorry?
I need to learn Mongo. I only know SQL or MySQL.
So I mean, for our case, it's not really relevant.
Right. I know that I was talking to some dude who apparently knows a lot about this stuff, and he was saying Mongo is better for like scaling and stuff.
No, it doesn't.
And
no, it's not.
No, it's not necessarily true.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Trust me.
I would disagree.
Okay.
Trust me.
He said like for MySQL you need to like map things out like a lot better than you do in Mongo.
Yeah, but that forces you to think about your objects.
Right. Which I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay, so let me ask you something here. Okay, so you have here. So let's map out your product in models. Okay, so like any website in the world, you have a user. Okay. This is the first unit of work when you have a website. What else do you have?
Are we talking about my project or
Yep.
generally?
No, yours.
We have a list of games.
Okay, so we have a game.
Right.
Okay.
We have a not a console, but a platform.
Okay.
A game platform. Right.
That
So, like,
that's
what
actually
platform?
okay. That's actually like a great example of
Being
right
specific?
here, just in this game and platform is a great example of MongoDB versus MySQL. Okay, so this is the MySQL way. So you have games, it's a table. You have platforms, that's a table, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is called normalizing the data, which basically means that every model sits in its own table, and every object type, which is a model, sits in its own table. So now you want to associate game with a platform. So in the MySQL way, you would have like a platform ID here, which would be a foreign key to platforms, which this means that once you delete a platform, so let's say someone created a fake platform and created a bunch of games, then once you delete that platform, it will automatically delete all of the games. Okay? So in the Mongo way, game is a collection, so games is a collection, and game is a document, but this document has no schema, which basically means that you can store game ID 1, platform 2, and you can store a game with ID SSSS1 and platform 22222. Okay? And these are both valid objects inside of your collection. And one other thing is now, because a document DB has no joins, and if you use joins, then you might as well use a relational database. Then what you need to do is you need to store the platform inside of the game. So the game document also stores the platform data on the same document, which means that now when you have a change to platform, you need to traverse a simple graph, but you need to traverse a graph to see what kind of games are associated with that platform. And then you are into a world of hurt. Okay, so
what you just said is a bad thing to do.
Very bad. I mean, a document database is great if you understand the difference between a document database and a relational database. If you use a document database as a fast data access layer, but use it as a relational database, you might as well be using a relational database, especially now with Postgres being, amazing with object stores and JSON blobs and so on and so forth. You might as well just use it. And MongoDB being fast or scalable is just...
So Mongo is the way to go, you think, in terms of my project?
I mean, we're going to go with Mongo because it's the easiest to start here. But what I'm saying is for your project... So I'm going to take a step back. Every decision you make about your project needs to be a conscious decision.
Right.
And by conscious decision, I don't only mean, okay, I'm deciding to go with this. And I talked about it in the last stream as well. You need to weigh the problem, and then you need to understand the solution. If you weigh solutions, then the most features will look like the best solutions, but it's not necessarily true.
Hmm.
If you say, okay, let me MySQL versus MongoDB. Hey, MySQL is slow, MongoDB is fast. Okay, let's go with MongoDB, right? But this is not talking about the problem. And the problem is I need a persistent data store that is easy to access, easy to manage, and will never fail. Then you understand that you don't want MongoDB and you want a relational database. Now you're in another fork of the world, whether you want MySQL or you want PostgreSQL, right? So you need to
Right.
understand why you use this or why you use the other. So all of these, decisions, they come together. But what I'm saying for now, for us, for like starting the project, it's way easier to start with Mongo than anything else. But we can definitely, change that later. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clone a project here. I think I talked about it in the last streaming
Right, the
session as
Stripe.
well. Yeah. So what you see here, you have a server.js, which is exactly what we use here. What we use with your project. It has an index here, and then it has views. Okay, so different than what I just talked about. This is exactly this. So this is views, which has a template engine, and so on and so forth, right?
Right.
Cool. But what I want to do is change. So this is not going to be localhost. It's going to be 0000. And then session secret. Let's change to, I don't know, session secret for now. And then Mailgun we don't really need right now, and Stripe and everything else we don't need. So let's do that and open up Mongo here. So what is the port again? So 27017. So Docker start -p 27017 to 27017. I see on the right side of my eye a message in the chat, so I will gonna be back with the chat in a second. So then this is Mongo 3.4, Docker start -p and then dish -it. Oh, Docker run! My God. Okay. So let's see what we have on Twitch. So did you get the Ergo docs from Massdrop or build it yourself? The answer is neither. I got it from Ergo Docs Easy. Here. Which they give you like the graphical configurator, and you can get, where is it? Let's see, buy now. So you can get a white or a black, and as you can see, you can get it with the tint kit, which is this here. You can get the wing rest or not, LED lighting or not, and you can switch keys. Yeah, so they give you a nice little kit, worth every penny, every single penny. And I know it's ridiculous to hear it about a $325 keyboard, but it's worth every single penny. Okay, so now we have this Mongo running, and we're gonna install npm here for this project. And what I want to show you here is the difference between the API and like the index.html. Okay, are you here, Matt? Hello?
Sorry, yeah, I'm here.
Okay, cool.
My
Okay,
bad.
so let's go. No worries. So let's go localhost 3000 here. So we have this. So I can like sign up. I don't know. Let's do this. Sign up. Not found. Do not provide API key. Oh, I don't have like a Stripe thing. Okay, doesn't really matter. What I want to show you here is that here, we can go to server, go to controllers, and go to users controller. And let's see what we have here. So we have post profile. So let's look at routes. So users. So app.post user, as you can see. This will redirect this and app.post user billing, user password, user delete. Okay. Is authenticated. All right. So what I want to do is I want to take one of these API call. I mean, one of these like HTML templates, and make them into an API call. But before I do that, here's what I want to show you, Matt. Okay. So as you can see here in the project, here on the left side, so someone on Twitch, just a sec. Not ridiculous. I dropped $300 on the Keyboard IO on Kickstarter. Wait, did Keyboard IO ever ship? I remember looking at that, and I don't remember it ever shipping. I was so tempted to do that, but I don't remember it ever shipping. So this was one of my options. It's still on pre-order. It's ridiculous. Right. I think it's like over a year behind schedule.
That's pretty normal. You'll be lucky if you get anything at all. Kickstarter stuff is like wild guess.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. Right. So this. So I want to cancel Stripe, but it's not really easy. But here's what I want to show. I want to show this part here. So this is the project structure. And as you can see, it's all in directories. Okay, so you have the views directory, which you're not going to have if it's an API. You have your models, which currently only have a user. Right? And you see this? This is a user schema. So the schema is basically a schema for Mongoose, which is the communication layer with MongoDB. So as you can see, you have an email, which is a type string, which is unique and in lowercase. You have a password, and then you have a profile, which is a name and a gender and a location, a website and a picture. And you have a reset password token, and a reset password expires, and so on and so forth, right? And if you think about it, when you do users, so if we go to users controller, right? So you have post.profile here. So you do this. You see this? User.find1, and then you search by the email, and then you search by ID, and then you update all of the data, and you save. And this is very different from like doing, update, users, set, email, email equals to, something at something.com, and so on and so forth. So by using this, relational mapping project, which here is called Mongoose, then you have a very nice layer of abstraction above your database. And you can communicate with the database much in a much friendlier way. Okay? So it goes like this. So in your model, you put all your logic that is model created, like, compare password and give me the gravatar, or you would do user schema dot methods dot get reviews or something like that. You know what I mean? Which is going to be function, and then this would go and get like review dot find all, where user ID is this.id, you know.
Hmm.
um, and that gives you a very nice layer of abstraction above your database. And this is the way you build project. You definitely don't write SQL in your
In
controllers.
line.
Yeah,
Right.
you definitely don't do that. You work with well-defined objects like this. Once you work with well-defined object like this, which okay, I have a profile and I have a name, which is a string, and I have a gender, which is a string, I have a location, and so on and so forth. Once you do that, then what you use for data storage is completely abstracted from your SQL language, right? So with Postgres, you can use SQL. With MySQL, you can use one version of SQL. With Mongo, it's like a whole different version. Um, so once you do that and you work with an object relational mapping, then you can easily switch out the tier that in which you store the data, and then it's much easier to navigate between between your models and between your controllers and so on and so forth. And once you force yourself to work with this, then you will see a leak into like helpers. You will see a leak into some lib. You will see leaks into, okay, where do I put this generic logic, which is not really directed to this specific controller, to this specific model. And this is where you're going to have more of a naming conventions and, naming things in computer science, which is hard. But other than that, once you force yourself to, work this way, then, it's much easier to reason about, okay, this is a model, so it sits here, and this is a controller, so it sits here, and so on and
Right.
so forth. So just, getting one, like a minimal template like this, software as a service Stripe thing is really helpful to kind of see where people put things.
Hmm.
And this is what I liked, working with Rails. This is what I liked is, you start a project and you have all, it's like convention over configuration. And with, Express is confusion over everything. So that's the motto. So it's, once you work with a well-defined project like this one, then in more complicated project, you will find it easier to navigate around and understand where you put things.
Right.
So I really recommend going to this project and checking it out, because they really did a good job with providing a really minimalist thing. There is no 50 models or anything like that, and the middleware is really minimal. So you have a login and a response helper and Stripe events. Really like really simple stuff. Um, so it's really easy to find yourself in all this mess. But then it's also easy to extend it. So I really
Right.
recommend checking it out, and this will give you a good idea into where you start. So I hope I hope that really kind of helped, in terms of, I think two really three maybe ground rules that you need to remember. One is that every decision you make needs to be a conscious decision, and you need to weigh the solutions through the eyes of the problem and not through the eyes of the solutions. I think a lot of
Right.
people make mistakes by weighing solutions against each other, against one another, and not really looking at the problem. The other thing is that you never write SQL in the controllers. You never write SQL, period. You do everything with, although I saw you did migrations, and I really liked it that you had migrations, and kind of had a way to bootstrap your project. So definitely, I did like that. But what I was missing in your project more than anything is the model layer, which you completely did not include. So I definitely recommend doing that. And the third is to build an API first. So um, build an API first, um, and then build a client-side application that will consume that API later. So we have another question on Twitch. Also, if you're using iTerm 2, it has Tmux integration built in. The normal Mac terminal program doesn't. I'm using iTerm 2, and I'm using Tmux with iTerm 2. Yeah.
Hey, I have one more thing to add.
Yeah.
So Matt, that like this goes back to like your initial kind of reaction toward Mongo, like Mongo NoSQL versus SQL. So I actually have a bit of an opinion on that because I feel like you're kind of learning this thing on your own, which is the way I get here. Like I'm like a self-taught engineer as well. Like I've never went to classes and anything, and I try to learn on my own. And then in the beginning of like my learning experience, I also heard people talking about this cool stuff like MongoDB, and it's really great for scaling and stuff like that. But later on, like this is my, I'm a 3 year into being like a professional like software developer or web developer. I feel like learning relational database, SQL specifically, helped me tremendously. Like it helps in like multiple fronts, but most importantly, you like understanding how like relational database and tables and how data like interact with each other. It helps you to think about like the bigger picture of how different components and how the whole interaction layers. And I feel like it will probably be easier if you go with like relational database first and then go to like a NoSQL thing, then versus like starting with NoSQL and then going into relational. Because I mean, I might be wrong, but the way I understand it is like the world started with relational database. Like SQL is an old technology, started in the 1970s and stuff like that. And then NoSQL is a solution to a problem with relational database, which was scaling, right? It's like, but then relational database it's almost like the grandfather of like database structure and stuff like that. It has a lot of nuances in there. It helps a lot of as engineer, I feel like I got a lot by just learning relational database. And then I mean I'm not a really expert on Mongo. I touch it only a little bit, but I feel like it would be beneficial if you're like a beginner. It seems like you're in a beginner phase of being this thing. I'm a beginner too. You're like a level 1 beginner. I'm probably like a level 3 beginner, right? But I feel like learning relational database was one of the important good decision that I made like earlier in my learning career.
Right.
So I would recommend you to learn it regardless, and Mongo. And I think Mongo isn't that hard to learn anyway.
Right.
But relational database, it's hard to get good at, I think.
Right. I've gotten pretty comfortable with like the whole workflow of the basics of like creating, reading, updating, deleting.
Right.
And then of course like when you're talking about like a relational database, like if I have a users table and then like a game, or no, let's use games and platforms like earlier. So if I have a games platform, then I'm going to add in a what do you call it? A platform ID so they can like talk to each other. That's pretty much what you're talking about, right? In terms of relational, like stuff like that.
Right, yeah, like how like
how the tables will kind of connect.
Correct.
Type deal.
Correct. Yeah. So that will also help you to think about how you model the different different models that you want to build inside of your apps, whatever Express or Rails or whatever. So that I guess there's just something kind of the fact that you talk about it like makes me I recall in my memory that's also a phase I went through because Mongo generates so much buzz, and when you're learning is like I want to learn like the cool things and the newest things, but
I actually thought MySQL was the coolest because whenever I was young, like all these like games, especially way older games, they all use like MySQL and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm choking.
Yeah. Anyways, that's just my 2 cents on relational. I think a relational database still has a lot of value to offer, and it's worth learning.
Right, and I'm pretty sure you're right. It's probably easier going from a relational or to a MySQL based database to a NoSQL based database. It's probably easier to switch from that rather than vice versa.
Well, 100%.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That's what
That's
I
how I feel.
figured as well. So
100%. But again, I think, you know, the thing is data design and object module design is really, an art, especially when you
Right.
need to think about scaling. And I spent months just like tweaking and changing and changing orders of tables and so on and so forth in tables
Yeah.
that had you know 30 gigabyte. Only the index is 30 gigabytes. So um, you go through a lot of maturing in that area. Um,
right.
but I think once you go with a relational database, then it really forces you to think about, okay,
To
where
think,
what
right.
is my model? Okay, so I have a users, and then I have a users that rated something. So do I store it on the users, or do I store it in a third table that is basically defining the relation between a user and a rating and a platform, right? I don't know what. And once you work with that, then it's your data model is clean. When you go with Mongo and any document store, because it's a schemaless and you can really abuse it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
you you use its strengths against it. You know, um, I,
Right.
I don't remember who told me that, but I use that line on basically every framework and product that there is that I think people abuse. And it goes like this: it's so powerful that you can shoot yourself in the foot with it.
Mhm.
Um, not saying that you cannot do it with MySQL. You can definitely do that with MySQL as well. Shoot yourself in the foot a lot, but I think with
Right.
starting a project with MongoDB, I think right now at your stage, I think it's a mistake.
Right.
For
Well,
me,
good thing I ever started with SQL then.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. MySQL or Postgres or whatever. Start with that. Find a project or get that project with the Stripe API, and then communicate. Instead of Mongoose, one good exercise would be to just replace the entire Mongoose tier with Postgres tier. That would be like a
Right.
great exercise. Um, so yeah, definitely, go down that route um, instead of starting with vanilla like Express and then thinking what you need. Go with um, a really minimal project that is starter kit or whatever. Excuse me. And then it will be much easier to add things and see
So you
kind of
do
how
suggest
things.
starting from
A
not
really
starting
a
from
really
scratch?
minimal one. I think if you
Yeah,
start
the
if
other one was pretty big.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think we looked at that on Friday, and that one was huge. It had like communication with Facebook and communication with this. Even here, just removing the stripe is like so easy, that you can just remove it and then delete it. You can remove the views and then delete them, um, and you can
Right.
start with that, or even just what I usually do is I will start from scratch, but I will copy paste things from other project of mine. So what you will see a lot, and there is some good suggestion in the chat room now. SQLize is a great SQL ORM. I completely agree. I used it a lot in the past for Postgres. Um, so what I do is I start from scratch, but then I copy paste from another project I have. So I'll copy the package JSON and the Webpack and all of those things, and it still breaks because it's Node. But but this is breaks it. But this is breaks from a point where I knew it worked. So then I kind of know where to look. Um, and check out the things. Divayo saying happy to be here. We're happy to have you here. And someone is following. Who followed? DeFio is following. Thank you.
So, do you think looking at this like this boilerplate, like really minimalistic boilerplate, would kind of direct me in the correct flow of work?
Yeah, I think so. 100%.
Okay. So I just basically just need to copy their style and just go from there.
Yeah, Let's start with, you know, copy the package JSON, copy the app.js. Start with not copying the middleware, just copy one, and then as you build things, and as you build things from scratch with that as an inspiration, you see what breaks. And then when you see what breaks, you see how it's connected. You know what I mean?
Right.
For example, right now, everything works, so you don't know which connects to what. And this is, I remember the first project that Stevens and I built together with React. He saw like projects of mine, like this map thing. He saw that working, and it's always like, yeah, it just, it works because it's React and it works. But only when you start to, add things one by one with a template on the side, it's almost like copying a painting. Only then you see how it kind of interacts,
Yep.
Do you know the paint an owl meme?
What are you talking about? I've never heard of that.
Okay, so there is okay, like every tutorial on the internet is like this. I'm showing something on the browser.
Hotel near Eiffel Tower?
No. So this is like every tutorial on the internet. How to draw an owl. Draw some circles and then draw the rest of the fucking owl. So
Pretty much how it is.
This is pretty much every online tutorial. It's like, okay, I now input this command, but then nothing is installed, so you have no idea what this command does. You know what I mean? So only when you start with a project and with inspiration, then you start adding things one by one, then you see, oh, the controller needs this. So this is connected to the controller by the validation layer. You know, I'm just talking out of my ass now, but you basically, as you add things, you see how they're connected. It's literally the first time I knew what the fuck a Webpack.js does is when I wrote it from scratch. I just I remember.
I still know what it is.
No one does, and until you don't like take one as an inspiration and then say, okay, I'm gonna build one from scratch, but I'm gonna take that one that I know is working, and I'm just gonna copy paste part and see what breaks when. So I remove this line and then this broke, and I remove that line and then that broke. Only then does it click to you. And you say, okay, these parts connect that way. I think even now, you don't really understand what is the connection between a controller, a model, and a view. But when you take...
no clue.
That's all right. And that's all right. But let me give you a big, overview here. But what I'm saying is not until you try it on the project like this, only then do you will it click to you, right?
Yeah.
So
that's pretty much how everything was. Like, I could look at all the Node videos I wanted, but until I actually did it, it didn't click. And the first time I did it, it clicked.
Yeah. So here is like a big kind of abstract thing that I don't really agree with, but all right. So the user uses the controller, which manipulates the model, and it doesn't have to manipulate it. Sometimes it just uses it. It just queries it, all right, which updates the view, which in this case, it doesn't have to manipulate. Just say, okay, pass through into the view, and then that's what the user sees, right? And this is a one direction data flow. But it's still, you know what I'm saying? It still doesn't click, not until you in a controller use a model. Only then you will see, all right, how do I interact here? This is how the user model is being used. This is how it's being saved. Um,
Right.
so definitely,
Huh.
definitely there. Um, and
This is very interesting.
someone gave you a tip on Twitch saying you should build an interpreter. Um, yeah, I think maybe a compiler is better. Um, what else do we have? Decentralize the internet. I watched the Silicon Valley final episode last night. Um, all right, so I really really hope that helped because
Yeah.
I think looking at your project, it really seemed like a lot of these concepts, and this is what I'm trying to convey here, I guess, is that you should not be discouraged by this, because every starter project that I've seen, every like first project that I've seen from people, is a huge mess. It's like a huge cluster of things that they saw somewhere, like a tip that they saw somewhere, and then they incorporate it into their entire application stack. Um, it's
Right.
not until you really have a talk like this and see, okay, this is how it works, and not only until someone tells you, and I'm not trying to take the credit here, but it was the same for me. Until someone tells you, hey, everything you add, you need to be conscious about it. Everything you do, you want to write a query in the controller. That's all right if you know what that means. If you know that means that now you have no control over it using a model, and if it's okay that you're in danger of SQL injection and so on and so forth. So if you
Right.
know all that and then you decided to go with it because X, Y, and Z, I'm totally fine with that. But if you just added that as like, I need to communicate with the database, then it's not okay. Um,
Right.
you know, so definitely, starting with a project like this and having a conversation like this, it clicks.
You're right.
Um,
Hmm. So use community or how do you communicate, I guess, the database using SQL without using the thing? Is it the same concept as
oh,
the
completely. It looks really similar. Let's see.
okay.
So Node. I'm searching the internet here. Let me show the browser. SQLize. I don't know. Starter. Let's see. So there it is. So SQLize, and you'll have this Passport, Express, and SQLize. SQLize Arbor Easy, MySQL, MariaDB, SQLite, and Postgres. Oh,
So
Grunt.
you need to
What the
use some
hell?
sort of like middleware thing. It's not just something you can just do.
Um, no, it's you can just do it. But what I'm saying is, you need
Oh, you're just showing me an example.
yeah. I'm showing you an example. But what I'm trying to say is that the object relational mapping, which in this case for this project is called Mongoose. So if we go models user, it's called Mongoose here, and as you can see here, right? So then you see new mongoose.schema. So it will look extremely similar, only instead of this, it will be like SQLize, and here too. So SQLize, when I can type.
Okay. So
Um,
SQL is not an actual like. It's not like MySQL. It's
no, it's
separate.
it's just a
It's like a schema creator type deal.
yeah, it's schema creator and communicator. So when you do user dot find one, and then you pass an ID, then this will be translated into what I can type. So this will be translated into this. So select select star from users where ID equals 1. But then instead of having just an object to work with, you will have the user object. So you can do this user equals this, for example, and then you have a user dot first name, and you have a user dot last name, right?
Wait,
So then if
user
you
dot last name. What are you talking about?
no, what I'm saying is
Where'd you get that from? Oh, you're just
I,
giving
I'm,
me an
I'm,
example.
I'm giving you an example, right? And if you want to update something, then you do user dot last name equals new one, and then user dot save, like so, right? So you communicate with the database just like you would communicate with any other JavaScript plain object, you know?
Right.
And the SQLized layer or any other ORM abstracts away the rest of the things. It abstracts away the validation. It abstracts away all of the other things.
Hmm. So you're still writing your SQL in line, but it's just being accessed a different way.
Well, you're not writing your SQL in line. You're writing the communication with SQL, but you're writing simple objects
Right.
in line, right?
You're not actually making like a direct connection and like querying from the
Exactly,
actual. Right.
exactly.
That's why I was saying this is kind of like the middleman.
Yeah, exactly. This is a middleman between your database and your objects, right? So instead of giving
Right.
you some object, it gives you a named object, gives you a user object, right?
So
Um,
it's the same deal. It's just there's just a middleman there type deal.
yeah, but it's like having, um, so it's like having this. It's like having, um, you know, a user equals this, or having a user equals user, which is a class which has, you know, an ID, a username, and so on and so forth. So when you use this as a named object, then you know your user has a ID and it has a username. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's the difference between using a defined object versus using SQL, which gives you a loosely typed a loosely defined object. So when you work with a ORM, what you get is a tightly defined object on a loosely defined schema. I
Right.
hope that connected. Um,
Kind of. It'll click when I use it. I'm sure.
yeah.
It'll
Um,
like really click. Yeah.
Again, I think what you really need to know is this. So you have an object here. So user equals user dot find one, right? Like this. So now this user is a JavaScript object. Do you agree with me?
Yes.
But it's also a JavaScript object that has a direct connection. Ah, sorry. So that has a direct connection to the database. And when I say direct connection, I don't mean a TCP connection, right? I mean a direct relation to the DB, right? So now when you have a user dot name, let's say the user dot name is Avi, right? But now I say
Right.
user dot name equals Matt, and I say user dot save. What this will do is it will look at name changed, and then it will update. So it will do update users
So it'll do all
set
that for you.
name equals Matt, where ID equals the ID, right? And one thing to look at is that I didn't define the where ID equals something. I didn't say, hey, only update the name, right? And but
Right.
what I want you to understand is if I do user.name equals Avi here again, all right? So this means the object is dirty. But this means the object is clean again. So when I do user.save, it will do nothing in the database. So it has the concept of whether the object is dirty or the object is clean. And if the object is dirty, once you hit save, it will save those changes to the database.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Jeez.
Um, yeah, it's like I showed you here. So users controller here. You see, I have this. Where is it? Um,
So the user's controller is just
like here.
you've seen my what do you call it? My routes file. It's kind of like that, right?
Yeah. Look,
Right.
everything you did is really really similar. It's just the organization wasn't really there, and definitely you had no models, which is the biggest thing, right? All the
Right.
rest you could excuse, but the having no model, that's the really bad part. And that's where when you have a 2, 3, 4, 5 actions app, that's fine. When you have 50, you're gonna be in
I
hell.
forgot. I completely forgot like what a model is again.
Um, no, but so a model is the relation between an object in the language that you work with, in this case JavaScript, and the database table.
Right. So what would this boilerplates one look like? Just so I have like a visual.
Sure. So again, it has a models user. And let's go back to the previous change. So let's go back to the first
Okay,
one.
so this is the actual file right here.
Yeah, this is the actual file. And as you can see here, there is a user schema and it's mongoose.schema. You can see an email and a password. So this is the model definition, right?
Yeah.
Actually, just a sec. Okay, let me remove the stripe here for a minute.
Yeah.
And what I want to do is I want to start this. What? Oh, I'm not in the right code. Open source node. Okay, so npm start here for a minute. What happened? I probably put one of my notes there. Okay, got it. So get plans. So let's put get plans as a simple array here. And what else? Same here. What I'm doing is I'm just like removing stripe here for a minute because I don't want to
use it. Right?
mess with it right now. Okay, so we now have a running app. Only now I can really log in. So, I need to sign up first. So 1Q, 2W, 3E, 4R. I never put this password really, so don't. Okay, and I have a profile. Cannot read property name. So where is this? Okay, cool. So now, here's what I want to show you. So let's do node here, and then var user equals require models user. What? Models. Oh, server. So server model user. All right. And then user dot find one. Wait. So just a sec. I want to show you how this thing kind of works. Okay.
Right.
So user is controller. Okay.
Anyway, but
Okay. So user var user, and then user dot find one, and then email is avi at kensodev.com. Then and then this is a function, and then error and u, and then user equals u. Okay.
Right.
What am I missing? I missed something. Damn it! I missed something. Okay, so user dot find one email dot then function here, and then user equals you, and then close this and this. What? All right. So dot then. Oh, okay. This one. There is no then. Just a sec. Okay. This is not even a promise, my God. So user equals you. Okay. Again. So here. And then var user. And then user dot find one with email is avi at kensodev.com, and then here, and then this is function error u user equals you. Close this and this. All right, cool.
Finally.
So now user. What?
I think. Did you assign the variable?
Yes, I did. All right, so this one, and then user equals you.
Okay.
All right. So this is weird.
I think you have to
Just find the variable now.
No, I did.
assign.
I signed it. There it
For
is.
what?
Here. User equals you, and user is var.
Oh.
Okay. All right. So let's do this one here. So the MongoDB is working. So I see the user coming in. And I actually see the user here as well. What? Right. Stripe. Cool. Okay. Awesome. So this is working, and as far as I can see, I do have a name. Okay, so var user equals null. And then user this, and then console.log error. And user equals you. Okay, I don't see an error, but I also don't see the user. Wait. User find one function find by ID. I don't see I don't know what my ID is. And user is still null. Is this my email? Let's sign up again. Log out and do avi at avi.io. Okay, sign in. Oh, sign up. avi.io. Simple password, sign up. And I will do the same thing. avi.io, user equals you, and close this out. Okay. Seems like something is not. Oh, I think I know what it is. I think it's not connecting to the correct mongoose. Okay, config, because I'm not requiring this. This is the problem.
Mailgun? But that's like Mailgun.
No. It's it's not connecting to the correct database model users. So mongoose. It's basically I'm not, because I'm not working through the server. It's not connecting to the server index, and here you see this.
Mm.
So let's do this. And this is server config secrets. Cool. And now mongoose here. Session is not defined. Oh, I don't need the session. Okay, so this is here. And then this. Okay, so now we're connected to the database. Minor detail.
Dude, you know what? I remember we've been through exactly the same thing before.
I remember too.
Do you remember? Dude, do you remember? This is like 100%.
This is why it's embarrassing. Okay, cool. So now the user is here. When we connect to the database, we can see the user. Okay.
Right.
So now you see I have a user, and this user is just an object. Okay, this is a plain JavaScript object. What I can do now is user.profile .name equals to Avi. And now my user looks like this. And you can see that this is different than this. And if I do user.save, and I think this is a function, I think this is a promisable object as well, which returns a promise, but that's all right. We don't need to handle that promise. And now I'm grabbing a fresh object from the database. And there it is. Name Avi.
Right.
Okay. So as you
we're
can
just using.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying we're just using like an object as a middleman that we're just saving.
Exactly. So you don't know that it's Mongo. You don't know anything, right? But what you work with, or you say user, and now actually if I also go to the browser and I go to profile, so cannot read property name of undefined. Oh, I think that's the plan actually. Okay, that's all right. We can fix that. So let's see. So users. All right. So profile.html name. Where is the name? This is probably plan. So stripe. This is this one. So we can remove this one. Okay. So now we can see the. All right. So now you see here I have Avi22222. All right. I'm gonna update the profile. Oh, my server is not running. npm start. Sorry about that. All right, so let's go log in, profile here, and then Avi2222 something, right? Update the profile. npm crashes, I don't care. But what now is I'm going to do user equals u. Then the user is going to have the Avi22222 that I updated, So just by using this ORM, you can see that I can work with very simple objects that are very well defined in terms of like a JavaScript object, as much as a JavaScript object can be really well defined. But what can also happen is if I say user.email equals to this, and then user.save.then, I don't know what it is, function e or something, I don't know, and then console.log e. Okay, let's see what it does. Mongoose. I don't see really anything. Yeah, what you can see is that it didn't let me update it. Or it actually did. So let's see why. Models, user, so email, type string, unique true. Oh, you see? It should just be unique and lowercase. There's no validation here in terms of like length or anything like that. But we can add that. And once we add that, then again, we give like an error whether, something is required or something is, too long or whatever. And I think there is, so let's see here. So email type is string, unique is true, lowercase is true. And I think there is a min length or something of that nature. So string. Okay, there it is. So validator. So there is something like this. You see? So you can have validator and then function v, and then you can return whether it's correct or not. So you can return v dot length is greater than 3. All right? And then if it's not, then it's going to be false. And then value is not a valid email. And then email is required. Right? And then when you're trying to save something, when you're going to try to save something with no username, then what you're going to see is a validation error. Okay?
Right.
At this point, just for a second, people in the chat room, I want to open this up for your questions as well. So feel free to ask questions. And as you know from previous streams, up there, here, there is all the information on what is the stream. There's the link to the Discord chat, which you can join and then also chat when the stream is offline, which we use a lot. So feel free to ask questions now. And Matt, I'm with you. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
well, if you have questions, you don't necessarily have to.
right. I guess it's just like the whole, like workflow. I guess like where to begin on something new. I guess. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess just when I look at the boilerplate, I'll kind of get a better idea. But
yeah, this boilerplate is really, really nice. Just grab it and do npm install and npm start. It's one of those rare boilerplates that will just run. So it's really, really nice to.
I gotta get rid of stripe and all that, I'm guessing.
Yeah, but I can just like compress what I have here, and it has no stripe. So I can give you that, and then you can start with that.
Okay.
Which will.
Or what I'll do is I won't use that actual boilerplate, but I'll use it as like a reference.
Yeah, exactly. And that way you can see what this line does, like user schema.plugin, Stripe customer and Stripe options. When I remove that, what did it do? If I don't remove it, what did it do? You know what I mean? So you can really work through how the project is structured.
Right.
And it's really easy to follow this project. So it already has the CSS and stuff. It already has the JS. So what I think is, at this point, you have so much information that start with that. See, what you try. Try to add like a model. Try to add your game or whatever. Try to display a list of games to the user, even if it's fake. But inside of
Right.
this boilerplate, and then if we have questions, we can revisit them on the stream or off the stream in the chat or whatever.
All right. All right.
All
Sounds
right?
good. 'Cause I think that's enough for like me.
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
only like suck in so much at a time.
That's okay. That's pretty common. You can ask Stevens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Avi can keep going, like keep going and going and going.
Right.
That's pretty common. So don't sweat it. Okay, cool. So thank you guys and people in the chat room. Thank you for being here. Oh, how many cows can fit? Okay, someone is trying to be smart in the chat room. Dude, I'm 35 years old and I have 3 kids. I have 0 time for your bullshit.
Rex.
How many
Okay.
cows can fit between?
Okay,
Anyways,
so
thank you, Avi.
thank you for being here, people in the chat room as well, and we will see you tomorrow.
Bye.